Jai Gurudev. Good evening, everyone. Greetings on the 88th Air Force Day to everyone. Our Puja Gurudev says, motivation is external and short-lived. Inspiration is internal and lifelong. Today, a formidable force of great men and strong machines celebrates excellence and courage. The grateful nation salutes the air warriors, veterans, and their families for their dedication and sacrifice. I desire to extend a gracious welcome to Air Commander Rabindra Merani with immense pleasure. I welcome the Chairman of SSRVM Trust, Commodore H.G. Harsha. I welcome our trustee, Ms. Jaina Desai, and our academic head, Ms. Rama Venkatesh. I bid a cordial welcome to all participants, coordinators, and teachers. I wish a genial welcome to all the parents and students. Today, that is, the 8th of October, is proudly celebrated as the Indian Air Force Day. The celebration today took place at Hindor Air Base in Ghaziabad. It was on this day in 1932 that the Indian Air Force was established, and it has been 88 years since. It was the part of the Auxiliary Air Force of the British Empire and then became a part of India after the country gained independence in 1947. It carried the name Royal Indian Air Force till 1950, when the prefix Royal was removed. Indian Air Force acts as an air arm for all armed activities and forces of India and secures the Indian airspace. It also conducts several aerial warfare during armed climates. The IAF had played a major role in operations, including Operation Meghdoot, Operation Cactus, Operation Vijay, and Operation Pumalai. The Indian Air Force has nearly 1,39,576 active personnel and 1,40,000 reserve personnel, making it the fourth largest air force in the world. Our Defense Minister, Shri Rajnath Singh, has rightly said, the nation is proud of its men and women in blue and salutes the prowess of the IAF as it stands ready to face challenges and deter adversaries. Because indeed, we all are proud of the Air Force personnel and remain forever indebted to the brave hearts and valiant soldiers of the sky. Over to you, Swati.
Thank you, Aryan. Jai Gurudev and a very good morning, very good evening to everyone present here. The Indian Air Force, an arm of the Indian Armed Forces, entrenched into the Indian horizon on 8th of October 1932. Equipped with warriors born to cut through the sky, and here we have an illustrious personality who touched the sky with glory, Air Commodore Sir Rabindra Merani. Air Commodore Sir Rabindra Merani was commissioned into the Air Force in 1974 as a fighter pilot. Later on, he went on to become a test pilot and a flying instructor. In his 34 years of service in the IAF, he has served in different parts of India, from Tamil Nadu to Jammu and Kashmir. During the Kargil operations, he was Chief Operations Officer at Chandigarh Air Force Base. He was later privileged to command the Air Force Base at Baroda. He also worked with DRDO Bangalore for the production of the indigenous AWACS aircraft. At school, he was in the NCC Air Wing making flying models. In 1970, he joined the National Defense Academy at Khadakwasla, Pune. He is an art of living teacher and a trustee of the Shri Rural Development Program Trust. His wife and his son Vishal are also teachers of art of living. I, Swati Santosh Kumar from SSRVM Mulund, feel honored and privileged to interview you on the 88th anniversary of the Indian Air Force Day on behalf of the entire SSRVM family. We are really thankful to you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and gracing the occasion. Over to Aryan for questions.
Thank you, Swati. So, sir, to begin with our discussion, I'd like to begin where your journey began. So, what inspired you to take up the NDA exam and devote your youth to the Indian Armed Forces, specifically the Indian Air Force? Has it always been a life goal?
Well, ever since I was a child, I was fond of toys, and somehow the toys had to do something with flying. I had a helicopter and I had an aeroplane, and I don't know. I was in Jhansi when they took me to an airfield, and we went inside an aircraft. I must have been about 3 years old, and that's the first memory I have. And there used to be a plane, a Dakota, overflying this small town of Jhansi those days. You know Jhansi ki Rani, the same city. My father was in the Indian Railways, so he was posted there. There used to be an aeroplane once a month only. It used to fly over our house. And I dreamt one day that this little aeroplane is coming down and down and down and down. And the size did not change. I was a small boy. It remained that big only. And it came and landed in our courtyard. And I put my hand on top of it. You're not going anywhere back into the sky. So I don't know. It was somewhere in my mind. But then I was in the NCC Air Wing. And we had this aero modeling out there in the NCC unit. We used to make aero models with small engines, and the models could actually fly. There were free flight models and control line models, which you held, and you stood in the center of a circle, and this aircraft flew round and round. And I also got selected to go for the Republic Day parade in 1970, and there I took part in the parade, and I also flew this model at the NCC rally where Mrs. Indira Gandhi was present. So then I tried very hard for the NDA, the National Defense Academy. It became a passion for me, and somehow I passed that exam. I wasn't a very bright student, and here I am before you.
That's great, sir. So, sir, you gave us an insight about your life. How do you think your life has changed as a part of the Indian Air Force? And what wouldn't have happened if you hadn't chosen to do the same?
My mother was very scared of my going into the Air Force, like all mothers. Aryan, I suppose your mom also.
Yes, sir.
So she said, I don't mind, you just remain a clerk here next to me. I, you don't have to go and become an officer somewhere and uh, join the Air Force and put your life in danger and put my heart in danger. And I'm sure there are so many other things that you can do. So I think if I hadn't joined the Air Force, I would have probably tried for the Indian Forest Service. I was very fond of animals and birds, so I had pigeons and budgerigars and parrots and rabbits, and never had a dog. My mother wouldn't let me keep a dog. So I was very fond of animals. I would probably have joined the Forest Service, but then my love for flying wouldn't have been fulfilled. Yes, was that the question?
Yes, sir. The question was more on what do you think the Air Force specifically has changed in your life, as in what you were before the Air Force and what has it changed in you and your
Yeah.
personality?
Okay. Yes. You said. You know, I used to be hell of a dopish kind of a guy. I would forget things and I would lose my way. So all that changed in the Air Force. After joining the National Defense Academy, they would have none of it. You had to be smart, otherwise you would get smartened up. And there were a lot of ways, there was a lot of ragging and all, where they would throw you around and put you through very tough exercises and tough punishments, they used to be called. You would have to do 20, 40 push-ups till you were ready to drop, and then you never forgot next time so easily. So it smartened me up quite a bit, I would say.
Right. As we know, it's only through the harshest of situations that diamonds come out, and all the soldiers and pilots that we see from the Air Force are indeed diamonds. So that would be a definitely part of that training, right? That brings me to my next question. So, could you share some stories of bravery and valor that you have seen firsthand during your time of active service?
Ah, well, flying was always a little sort of excitement was always there. I won't say it was dangerous, but you could make it dangerous. If you were not prepared, you didn't know what to do in an emergency, it could become dangerous. So, see, valor is when there is an enemy in front of you. And when we joined the Air Force, we used to generally have a war every 3, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years. You know, there was the 62 Chinese conflict,
Yes.
then there was
Yes.
the 65 war, and then there was the 71 war. So when we joined in 74, we were counting our years. Okay, 74. So around 79, 80, we'll probably have another war, and there we will be able to prove our mettle. But nothing of the sort happened. As you know, there was a lot of poverty. The country was put back by 10 years after the 71 war. There was so much of money and resources wasted in a war. So we never really had a war. But valor, yes, was in the Sri Lanka operations. That happened during Rajiv Gandhi's time, the late 80s. And, you know, our helicopters were flying under a threat all the time. Helicopter has got a rotary wing,
Yes,
so
sir.
it cannot glide. If you shoot the rotor, you're going to come down. So some of my colleagues who were in helicopters, they were very daring, I would say. And daring why? Because they had to go and rescue a fallen pilot, or they had to pick up an army casualty, or they had to land troops somewhere. So Sri Lanka, northern Sri Lanka was a Batiklova, and these names you will come across, uh, were completely covered by a forest. And you don't know from where the bullets would start firing. And helicopters don't fly very high, yet they had those guts that they would fly and expect to get shot down. And if you were shot down and captured by uh, the Tamil Tigers force, it was very unfortunate.
So these stories might have scared some listeners. So what would be your message to encourage the student community and to those who wish to pursue defense as their career?
Yeah, you know, the defense career is a very, um, I would say, a safe, comfortable career to join. There is a security of job, there is a focus, there is enjoyment, there is pleasure. You meet so many people, you travel so much. It's got everything. The Air Force actually has an adventure cell. You know, I sent you and Swati a video,
Yes,
the
sir.
skydiving video.
Yes, sir.
In the Air Force, there is plenty of time, and you can, pursue these other things in life that you require. And you don't expose yourself to danger all the time, let me tell you. And especially in today's Air Force, we make sure that we have enough safeties built in for everything. We call it redundancy. If an aircraft fails or something, and he has to resort to something which is a standby, it will still bring him back. Same thing in the army. They are well protected. They know what to expect. And it's not that you're putting your life on line all the time. No, it's not. I've come out through 4 different life-threatening situations where it could have been whichever way, but it doesn't happen. There were enough safeties built in. I came down in a parachute. The last resort was having to come down in a parachute after I ejected from a plane which was no longer controllable. And the parachute opened and I landed and everything was fine. I wasn't even injured except for a few scratches here. And I was back in the cockpit flying again in 15 days. So it's a good career.
Right.
And at the end of it, or I don't know, whenever you want, Aryan, we can show, we've got those 3-4 slides which will take us through how you can join the Indian Air Force.
Right, sir. I'm sure that the presenters will show that. And sir, that brings me to my last question. You mentioned about safeties and a lack of conflict in today's times. So, we still see that the government is developing and enhancing our defenses. So, where do you see the Indian Air Force in the next decade, and what changes do you expect to take place?
We have already started acquiring state-of-the-art aircraft. We have already started carrying out exercises with the major air forces of the world. In 2019, we had an exercise with the US Air Force. In 2018, we had an exercise with the Russian Air Force. We have had exercises with Singapore. We've had exercises with Australia. Okay, so this is as far as operational capability is concerned. It is going to be world class. And the Air Force has basically 3 types of aircraft. In the fixed wing class, we have the fighter bombers and we have the transport aircraft. Now, fighter bombers are the arrowhead or the sharp end, which actually deliver the ammunition. So there we have the Su-30s, some 272 Su-30s, I believe we already have, and we are going to get more. There is an upgrade going on for the Su-30s. The Mirage is a world-class aircraft, and the upgrade of the Mirage is also on. Then we have the MiG-21, BIS and Bison, which is also getting an upgraded suite every now and then. So these are the fixed wing aircraft. Then in the transport aircraft, we already have the C-17 Globemaster heavy lift, which can go and take troops anywhere. It's taken tanks and it's gone to Ladakh, and we have the capability to put it up before the Chinese out there. It's no longer like the 1962 war where we didn't know what to do. So we have that heavy lift, and we have the Hercules medium lift and the aging N-32s also for the other jobs. From Chandigarh, we are maintaining, the Air Force is maintaining the army, which is deployed in Ladakh. The roads are open only for 5 months. Now with the opening of the Manali, Ladakh will have to change. Maybe the Air Force is tasked in maintaining the army divisions which are on the other side of Banihal. that is in Leh and Ladakh, will become an easier task for us. Otherwise, from Chandigarh, we regularly in the winter months send fresh and ammunition, ordnance to our troops, to the army, which is out there. There is also a standoff in Siachen, the highest battlefield in the world, as you know. So that's also the Air Force responsibility. Our small helicopters, the cheetahs made by HAL, they air maintain the posts which are at 19,000, 20,000 feet above mean sea level. And these cheetahs are such that they can fly there safely and bring a person back in an emergency. But at those heights, its capability is very limited. But we still have the capability. Then we have the Chinooks, which are coming in. The Mi-17 1V is also getting an upgrade. So in Siachen, we have the Mi-17s looking after our troops there. So it's a combined operation. The Air Force is close with the Army. You know about the CDS, right?
Yes, sir.
Chief of
Yes, sir.
Defense Staff. So he becomes a single point contact for the Defense Ministry. He looks after all three forces, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. Have I answered your question? Have I left out something?
No, sir. Your answer was better than adequate. So I believe now my
Thank
friend
you.
Swati has a few questions for you. So over to you, Swati.
Thank you, Aryan. And thank you, sir. Your answers were really intriguing. So, sir, could you please tell us how to keep your team motivated despite all the conflicts and obstacles that you faced in your life?
Motivated now or then?
Then, sir.
Well, it was an Air Force where you went for work at 7:30 and you flew 2 or 3 sorties, we call them, 2 or 3 flights. Each flight is it takes about an hour. You're in the air for about 45 minutes, 40 minutes. And by the time you come out of the cockpit, relax and all, it's hour to hour and 15 minutes. So you've done your 3 sorties for the day, which is like fun. And at 1:30, your lunch is waiting for you at the officer's mess. And then you go and relax, do whatever you like in that time, rest for a while, then put on your trainers and PT shoes and go and play tennis or play basketball, play cricket, and nobody is going to ask you for from 4:30 till sunset 6:30. You are outside, outdoors, doing anything you like. Now the Air Force is changing. You have night flying, so these poor chaps, 15 days in a month, they come back and then they relax and then they have to go for night flying. They're flying till 12 o'clock in the night. So we had night flying, but not so much. So you tell me, if you have such an enjoyable life, will you have any kind of tension or stress? And almost no,
Definitely not, sir.
almost no padhai. But padhai is there. So after 6:30, when we used to come back from games, we would have a shower and then sit down and revise the notes that a pilot is supposed to know. You know, as a pilot, you are supposed to know some things. So we read those, and then we would have an early dinner. 8:30 onwards, there would be dinner, and or you can go at 9 o'clock. On the weekends, it was great fun because next morning you have to get up early. But on weekends, there was a lot of time, and next day you don't have to get up. So there is an officers' club. So we would have every other weekend there would be a party and everybody would be in very high spirits. They would um, joke and talk to each other. The ladies would join, and the bachelor officers, the married officers. There would be lots of good food, which we only would plan. कि आज ये खाना है, आज वो खाना है. The government gives you cooks and a mess and everything. And those who would like to have a drink, they would have a drink. Otherwise, the bar had any kind of soft drink that you could think of, and you would enjoy till 10:30 or so, 11 maybe on a Saturday night, and then have your dinner late night. So that was the Air Force then. Now I don't know. I am told that they are a little more careful about people sleeping on time. Aircraft are almost like airborne computers these days. So you have to learn a lot. You have to remain abreast a lot. We used to fly sorties of 45 minutes. The Su-30 pilots fly. Guess how much? Can you make a guess how long they fly?
No, sir.
Just make a wild guess.
So maybe some couple of hours.
4.5 hours also they have flown. Okay, 4.5 hours. You have to eat in that. Everything. There's no toilet also. You are strapped up in the seat. Okay, so that was one of the points. The pilots were not willing to, compromise on that. They had to wear what your little baby brother would wear. They are called adult nappies. So in those 4.5 hours, they had to be, very, very. They have to be. This is how the exercises are. They fly for long periods. And can you guess why they fly for long periods? And how they fly? How do you get? Okay, let me ask you a question, Aryan.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, if an aircraft has to fly for that long, what does it require?
Fuel, sir.
Fuel. And how will it get so much of fuel to fly for 4.5 hours at a time?
Maybe refueling while in air or by.
Exactly. Yeah. So with the air-to-air refueler coming into the Air Force, there's no getting away for these pilots, ki, chalo, abhi to fuel khatam ho gaya, we have to come back. No, the refueler will come, and it's quite a tough exercise. The refueler is flying in front of you, and your probe is there. You have to maneuver, fly that plane, exactly fly it into that parachute-like thing, and the probe goes in, and your refueling starts. Okay, 2 or 3 mistakes if you make, the refueler pilot will refuse to give you fuel. He'll say, this guy is too dangerous, he's coming too close to me, take him away, let him go and land somewhere else. I'm not going to permit him to. It doesn't happen often, only in the training it does. So, but that is the level of training now that the pilots have to have. And that is how it's even more exciting. We never used to go abroad like my youngsters are going now. The young pilots, okay, exercise in Singapore, let's go. Air-to-air refueler along the way, en route, 1 refueling, 2 refueling, they're landing in Singapore. One of the reasons I joined the Air Force was, I said, I want to be able to say that I had my breakfast in Chandigarh and I'm going to have my lunch in Delhi. So these guys can say, I had my dinner in say Ambala, and I'm going to have breakfast in Singapore. Okay, and fly my own plane there. So can you imagine if I tell a 10th class boy that You just have to do what I tell. I will teach you. You just be ready to learn, and I will make you a pilot, and I will make you someone who does this. After this, I've sent another video to tech support. Uh, it's a test pilot telling us how different the modern jet fighter trainer is going to be. It's called the Sport, and it's being made by HL. So these links, if we can't fit in all these videos, we will give it to the children, and we will let them see it in their own time.
Thank you, sir. That was really captivating. So could you also walk us through about the most important risk that you took and why?
Most important what?
Risk, sir. Risk in your lifetime.
Most important risk.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'll have to open my diary and find which is my most important risk. Okay, but I will tell you about my funny risk. I was in Srinagar and the year was 1978, and I had got married in that same year in February 19. My anniversary is 24th February, and I had to leave my wife back in Hyderabad and come to Srinagar and continue with my work of flying. And since I had become a little senior, I was a flight lieutenant then. I was told to go and flight test this aircraft. I was flying NATs those days. A NAT is a very small plane, and this was a plane that was used in the 65 and 71 ops, and it really gave the Pakistanis a bad time. So I was going to flight test this NAT, and as I was walking to the aircraft, a pilot younger than me, 2.5 years younger or so, Rahul, he says, "Sir, आपकी तो शादी हो गई है. Why are you taking all these risks? You should let people like me do all this." So I said, "Chup kar ja. When you become capable enough, they will let you do it." So I went to this aeroplane and started it, and uh, it happened to be my birthday, the 1st of September 1978. And in the evening, I had planned a little cocktail dinner kind of a thing in the Srinagar club, which was just outside our Air Force officers' mess. The mess itself is very nice and beautiful, but that is a daily thing. So when it is your birthday, you want to do something extra, isn't it? So all my squadron people and all friends, they were going to join me at the club, and I went and started this engine. I took off and I reached 15,000 feet, and I must have been between 15 and 17,000 feet, and it was an aileron check. You know what are ailerons? They control the banking of the aircraft. Have you ever been on a flight, Swati?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So when the aircraft is turning, have you seen that you can see more on one side? It banks
Yes.
like this. So it does that with the help of ailerons. So
Okay.
this was a aileron check, and when I started the check, it started rolling, like this. And then I'm supposed to correct it, come back like this. But it kept rolling like that, and rolling, and rolling, and it went on its back, and then it came back on its back, and then it went on rolling like this, and like this. And I tried everything I knew to correct it, but nothing doing. And from level flight like this, in this rolling thing, it became like this. Okay. So now what was the condition? I was seeing only the ground, and I was going round and round. Tadak, tadak, round, round. And the ground is approaching closer and closer and closer. And I didn't want to abandon the aircraft. I kept using different controls to correct it, but it did not get corrected. So what is the last thing to do in such a case?
Use a parachute.
The parachute. The training came back to me. And you know how we hit the parachute? How? Aryan?
So, is there a string or some sorts? Um, I don't know. Is there a string of some sorts that you pull and it automatically, or you pull a lever, the
Yes.
seat, and it ejects you?
Yes. Automatics. You just have to pull one string which is on top of your head, okay, and you just pull it down like this over your face, so that at that high speed of 500 kilometers an hour, your face can go flat. So it comes over your face, and there is a small cannonball under your seat. It is fired, and you are shot out of the cockpit at 22 to 24 G. You know what is G? G is acceleration due to gravity. 1. How much is your weight, Aryan?
Sir, about 79,
Okay.
approximation.
Okay. No, I don't think you are 79 unless you are a 6-footer already. Okay. You must be much lighter than that. Swati, what do you say? You haven't.
Around 60.
Okay, you're 60. So you feel you are 60 kgs, isn't it? Now, when you feel 2G, you feel you are 120 kgs. When you experience 3G on the body, your weight becomes 3 times your weight. Okay, so a fighter pilot goes up to 6G. That means he is, for a short period, 6 times his own weight. That's why they tell fighter pilots, you'll see fighter pilots are always lean and thin. So when you're being shot out of the cockpit, for that fraction of a second to get you out safely, you feel 22 Gs. So it's really a kick in the pants, and tuck, tuck, tuck. Before I knew it, I was out. And then came the jerk when the parachute opened, and I saw that my flying boot, which I was wearing, had slipped a little. And I remembered even at that time that I must get this boot right, otherwise I'll break my ankle when I land. And I pulled that boot up. And very soon I landed, because from 15,000 feet, I must have come down to 5,000, 4,000 feet when I finally ejected. And this parachute had fully opened, luckily. And I came and landed, and there were these Kashmiris who came around me and said, "Aap theek hai na? Bilkul theek hai. Doodh piyo, sep khaoge." I said, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And within 5 minutes, the helicopter came to pick me up, and the doctor was in the helicopter, and this crowd started. First time in their life they had seen a helicopter. They started running towards the helicopter, but the helicopter has got those rotors, which is very dangerous. A chap can get his head cut off if he comes in that. So I had to run faster than them, and then turn back and say, "Stop, don't go any further." So the doctor saw me, and he certified me fit there only. He said, if Merani could run like that, that means there's no back problem, no nothing. He is fine. And next day they made me fly again. Next day, though my body was paining so much, and because of that extra G. And then the party was on. They said, "How can you not have your party?" I said, yes, how can we not have the party? So after landing and giving a statement, writing all the documents and the paperwork and all, we went for the party also at the Srinagar club. and I had one of my best sleeps after that there. So that was a risk, one of the risks I took. There have been others, so maybe we'll leave those for a later time.
So that was really perilous to hear. So, sir, could you please tell us that we know that sound adaptability and aptitude is very important in the Air Force. So, could you please emphasize the importance of it and explain it to us?
Yeah, you know, we have a pilot aptitude test. That is, your mind should not be muddled so much that you cannot make out what is the aircraft aptitude at all. So you can learn these things, and the pilot aptitude test is not very accurate. Some very good people have got rejected in the pilot aptitude test, I'm sorry to say. But sometimes that is bad luck. But basically, you should have that little bravado. You understand what's bravado?
Yes, sir.
धैर्य.
Bravery.
धैर्य चाहिए. Because after all, to finally go solo, you need to have that confidence in yourself that I can go on my own and I'll be able to land this aircraft back. And what do you think are the speeds of an aircraft when it's landing? You can't reduce speed beyond a certain speed in a fixed wing aircraft. In a helicopter, you can, but not in a fixed wing. But everyone starts flying on fixed wing first. So what do you think is that speed is?
So, I have no idea.
Okay. So in a jet, it would be something like 200 kilometers, and in a piston or in a propeller trainer, it would be about half that much. So coming and touching down at 100 kilometers an hour requires some guts, no? So one aptitude is that you have to want to do it. Then the other thing is your physical fitness, you not being airsick. Somebody, a lot of pilots. When I was a instructor, flying instructor, there were some pilots who would get airsick. You know, some people get this seasickness when they go to sea, and then they have this mountain sickness when you're driving through mountains and all that. So that is one thing which sometimes doesn't allow pilots to proceed beyond a point. They get airsick. And then little bit of intelligence is required. That also, I would say, not little bit, little more than average. It's average, but little more than average. And lastly, the ability to put in work. Especially the pilot of this day has to sit down and he has to know everything about the different systems that are there on the aircraft. Though a computer does everything for him, but he has to know how to use that computer. When you see that video of the test pilot, he's telling you in this trainer, which is the latest trainer called the Sport, which is based on the Tejas aircraft, the LC aircraft, is when you go into the enemy territory, you don't want to expose yourself. What happened to Abhinandan? He got shot down, isn't it? So you don't want to go into enemy territory where an enemy surface-to-air missile can shoot you down. So you are taking drones with you. Now drones are unmanned aircraft of kinds. So you let the drone go and do the work, or you have a unmanned vehicle with you, flying with you. There's no pilot inside that. The pilot is flying from somewhere else. Okay, that's what an unmanned flight is, and that will go and hit the target. So any small miscalculation in the target parameters, and a bomb worth $1 million is going to miss it by 200 meters. And if you miss it by 200 meters, it's of no use. It's just another Diwali fataka, right? You like fatakas, Diwali fatakas?
Yeah, so I used to like when I used to see them in while I was a child, but now no.
Now, yeah. Now everybody is careful about the environment. Why do
Yes, sir.
we need smoke and sound pollution and all that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good, good. You children are the children of the future. We are now here walking away into the sunset. Okay, then,
So, sir, we'll come over to the next question.
yeah,
So, as we know that any complex machine, like a flying machine, needs to be thoroughly tested before it can be put to practical use. So,
yes.
could you please walk us through the concept of flight testing?
Oh, yeah. In Bangalore, we have the AST, Aircraft Systems Testing Establishment. Hmm? So anything that we have to give to the line pilot, first we have to test all its systems. Okay. One is prototype testing. That means the aircraft is flying for the first time. And the other one is systems evaluation and testing. That means the onboard systems which are going to perform the role for which the aircraft has been made, they are going to be tested on an already tested aircraft. But first, the prototype aircraft. Now, the prototype has to have been tested on ground, simulated. There is this wind tunnel test. Have you heard of a wind tunnel? They have a big fan running at high speed. It creates a strong jet of wind in which this fixed model is there. So it's the same thing, whether the aircraft is moving or the air is moving. So this high speed air is hitting this aircraft, and there are sensors on this aircraft which are tapped, and uh, the data is collected as to what was the pressure on every square inch of that aircraft. So first the tests are done like that on ground simulation, and now there is so much of computing power that a lot of this can be tested on a computer rather than risk a pilot's life. So a test pilot thereafter is given a flight test schedule. You will take off, fly to 10,000 feet, do a stall check. First, you will go up to this speed, see if the behavior is normal. Then you will drop the speed further, check the behavior is normal. So he's got a full flight test schedule. Very carefully at every step he's got. The moment he finds that the aircraft is not behaving the way it should, he'll stop that there only and come back. And then they will give him the engineers on ground will give him another flight test schedule and another flight. Like that, they would fly 200, 300, 400 flights. Okay. When I used to fly in AST as a test pilot with HAL and all that, we had the NAT trainer prototype which was flying. So anytime it can go into that, spin moment and where it's out of control. Uh, so this, if you go as per the test schedule, then these things will not happen to you. So after it is certified completely safe, just like the vaccine or just like any cosmetic that is to be tested, it is tested in small steps, and then the aircraft is cleared. Then a test pilot will really throw it around. He would do much more on it than a line pilot would do or would have to do in its operational role. And then he would say, okay, this aircraft. So that is prototype testing. Production testing is after the aircraft is flown 500, 600 hours, it goes back for servicing and they change everything, the settings. So a production test pilot just flies that same aeroplane to see that the settings are okay. And then he comes back, sends that aircraft ahead. And systems testing is again one by one, step by step, the system is checked out on the platform.
Thank you, sir. So, sir,
Did I answer the question?
also I would like to ask, yes, sir, yes, of course. And so I would also like to ask how exciting it is to discover the unknown as you take the flight.
Yeah. So for that, can I ask my friend Arvind Oak? You know, Arvind Oak has been, he is younger than me, but he's been like a guru to me. He's brilliant, and he's been teaching me things. Even when I became a test pilot, he gave me, we had a very tough what would you say, an entrance test, an exam to go for the 1 year test pilot's course. So he did the coaching for me. So, and during the Kargil war, he received the Yuddh Seva medal, and he is responsible for the Air Force's victory, I would say, in Kargil. So, tech support, Adarsh, is Arvind available?
Yes, sir.
So, Swati, you can ask Arvind that, and he'll tell us a little about Kargil as well.
Yes, sure, sir. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Swati.
So, sir, could you please tell us like how exciting it is to discover the unknown as you take the flight?
Can I tell you something about my friend Rabindra Merani, which he forgot to tell you?
Yes, of course, sir.
No. There was a question about bravery. So we've heard of putting your hand in the lion's mouth. So we know what he narrated about ejection, no? That you pull the handle and the seat fires you out of the aircraft like from a cannon. So he had another incident which he's forgotten to narrate, which was with a cadet when he was an instructor in the trainer aircraft. And the cadet froze and would not pull the handle when he was supposed to eject. So Ruby Merani reached out and pulled his handle. That chap got shot out of the aircraft, and after that, Ruby Merani ejected. Now, I don't think this has happened in any other recorded event that I know where you pulled somebody else's handle. Anyway, so that was an act of bravery and instinctive and right to the point. So now let's come to the question that you asked about the war. Okay. So can you repeat the question for my clarity?
Yes, sir. So, sir, how exciting it is to discover the unknown as you take the flight.
Oh, about the first flight? The first flight
Yes,
is
sir.
absolutely exciting.
Every time
Yes.
that you go,
Yes. The first flight is absolutely exciting because everything is unknown. And for the first time, the everything that you're connected to is shaking. The whole aircraft is shaking, and finally it shakes itself off the ground. So that is always a very thrilling moment. And what happens after that? The first few flights go in a daze, and this is not. We don't have any joyride kind of flights. You know? All our flights are training flights. So when you're doing the flight, you are not supposed to enjoy yourself. Okay, if you enjoy yourself, it is incidental, and it begins much after you have finished your training. Well into your training, when you go solo, then you can enjoy yourself. So the thrill is immense. But if you think that that is the only thrill you can get, you have so many alternatives now. Like you may have heard of something called paragliding, okay, where
Yes, sir.
you can take off with a cloth wing, which is like a parachute, and you can take off from the hill or from the ground with a towed vehicle towing you, and you can get airborne and enjoy the thrill of flying without actually having such a complicated machine tied to your back. And like my friend Ruby Merani, that's what we called him in the Air Force. Rabindranath becomes Ruby. So, as he would have told you, modern aircraft are extremely complicated, costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. So, they are not meant to give you pleasure. Okay. And every mission is very complicated. That means no aircraft just goes and does aerobatics or flies around as we sometimes think about it. It is part of a mission which is briefed, discussed, which has deliverable results, and there is a big debrief. I mean, like he described, our missions were generally 45 minutes or 1 hour, but it was followed by 1.5 hours of debrief. That means, what did you do? What were you supposed to do? What went wrong? And things like that. So this is, but the thrill of the unknown is always there, especially when you're flying your own aircraft as a leader of a formation, etc. Because in a sense, every flight has got a little element of the unknown. Okay, like he described, he took off for this test flight in a clear blue sky in an aircraft that was checked by everybody, supposed to be a simple test flight, and he found himself walking to the hospital in a helicopter after that. So that was the unknown, but he was getting the thrill of facing the unknown every day, because every day something new would happen. And some of the things that we had were, we flew in very simple times compared with what we have now. I mean, the time was simple, the aircraft was simpler, the mission was simpler, and we had a lot of time to enjoy ourselves, which is not the case now. And the Air Force was a great service to be in because of the glamour, the thrill, excitement, etc. You got to see new places, you got to fly in new terrain. You flew over forests that were so dense that the sunlight has never reached the ground in the last few thousand years. Then we flew over the Himalayan mountains, snow-capped. I mean, diving into one valley and pulling up and diving into the other valley, and flew over all these hills like Amarnath, Kolahoy, etc., etc. And in valley flying, you're flying below the level of the valley tops, and it's absolutely thrilling, no doubt about it. So that was the unknown.
And remember, I told you about that video which I have, you both have seen it, where a 103-year-old man is doing skydiving, tandem skydiving, but skydiving. So Arvindo is an accomplished diver. That means he jumps off aircraft with a parachute which is tied to his back, but he won't touch it till he knows that now if I don't use the parachute, I am going to become a tomato. So he falls free like that, and at a point, then they all open their parachute. So he, at the age of 45 and above, has been doing jumps like that. I think even 50, he's done that. And he's a great swimmer. He can jump off the 10-meter board 30 feet above the water, and he is an Indigo captain. He's just retired a few days ago. I attended his thing. So for all you know, you might have been flying comfortably, sipping your Coca-Cola, sitting at the back, and Arvind Oak was at the controls, flying you from Bangalore to Bombay and Bombay to Delhi or whatever. So he's done everything in his life, and he's a test pilot as well. And he's gone abroad and tested aircraft and systems for the Indian Air Force. So like I said, he's a very, very modest guy, and he is a teacher for so many. You should have seen the people who came for his virtual farewell party, and wanted to say things to him that, thanks to you, I'm this, and thanks to you, I'm that. He's been an instructor par excellence with Indigo as well. And his own son is a Indigo captain as well, or almost a captain.
Thank you, sir. I would really like to appreciate everyone present here. And thank you so much, sirs, for gracing the occasion with your presence and sharing with us your experience and wisdom beyond boundaries. Such illustrious people we have here today. We are really very fortunate to have had this enriching and empowering session to you. Over to Aryan.
It has been a delightful evening indeed. And not to just us, but to one and all, even the people who are watching us through Facebook. And it is rightly said by our beloved Guruji, and I quote, when gratitude in you stays, that very gratitude flows out of you as grace. So let me take this moment to appreciate our Guruji, Shri Ravishankar ji, for blessing us and allowing me to be a part of this blissful event. I, Aryan Singh of class 10 from Shri Ravishankar Vidya Mandir, Borivali East, would like to take this opportunity to extend my deepest gratitude and propose a vote of thanks to our honorable members present here. I congratulate the Indian Air Force for their momentous journey of 88 years, ever ready to innovate, integrate, and implement. I feel privileged and honored to express my sincere regards and gratitude to the most revered and erudite Air Commander Rabindra Merani for taking his precious time out and consenting to be a part of this event to enlighten us. With deep reverence, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to our honorable guest, Commodore H.G. Harsha, Chairman of SSRVM Trust, Trustee Member Ms. Jaina Desai, and Academic Head Mrs. Rama Venkatech for their sincere efforts, continued support, and guidance. I am extremely thankful to all the special invitees, principals, coordinators, teachers, parents, and students, as well as our well-wishers for making us feel elevated by your valuable presence. Once again, thank you to everybody involved in making this event a huge and great success. Jai Hind, Jai Guru. Thank you.
Jai Hind, Jai Hind. You see the picture behind? Now
Yes,
I
sir.
get the greatest thrills doing guided meditation by Sri Ravi Shankar. Pujya Sri Ravi Shankar's meditation are awesome. I would like to say to everyone present here.
Yes.